They say betrayal doesn't always start with a scream. Sometimes it starts with a number. A number that's too low, a balance that doesn't make sense, a simple bank notification that cracks the floor beneath your life. That was how it began for me. My name is Julia Greer. I'm 38 years old, a compliance manager at a mid-sized tech firm in Austin. I've always lived by the rule that what you build with someone should be protected. With honesty, with planning, and with trust. I'm not flashy. I drive a used Lexus, I budget our groceries, and I track every dollar like it's a piece of my future. So when I saw that our joint savings account had dropped below $3,500, I knew something wasn't right. Not wrong like an overdraft fee or a missed auto pay. Wrong like something hidden, something deliberate. It was early, around 7:10 a.m. I was making coffee, standing barefoot in our tiled kitchen. The light was spilling across the floor in that way I always loved. I should have been starting my day like usual, with caffeine, quiet, and a glance at the news. But instead my phone buzzed and everything changed. Balance alert, $3,412.17. I stood there blinking. That account had over $10,000 last week. Maybe it was a mistake. A system glitch? I tapped into the app and checked the history. Within seconds, the room went silent. All the normal noise, the fridge humming, birds outside, faded into the background. 3 transfers, all large, all recent, all to another account. The recipient, Marcus Greer, my husband. I didn't feel rage, not yet. I felt hollow, like I'd stepped into a parallel version of my life. One where the man I shared a home, a bed, and a future with was silently rerouting our plans, one transfer at a time. I didn't call him, I didn't text. I just sat down at the table and let the reality take shape. Marcus had moved thousands of dollars without a word. No heads up, no discussion, just gone. Quietly, confidently, like it was his right. And that's when I knew this wasn't an accident. If you've ever felt that moment, that ice-cold clarity when trust evaporates, you'll understand why what I did next wasn't loud. It wasn't revenge in the Hollywood sense. It was methodical, strategic, precise, and it ensured he'd never touch what was mine again. Before I go further, I invite you to subscribe if you haven't already. This channel isn't about drama, it's about stories that show quiet strength, slow burn comebacks, and what it looks like when you reclaim your life with grace. Let me show you how I did it. Marcus and I had been married for almost 9 years. We met at a networking event downtown, a cocktail mixer full of tech people and startup dreamers. I was there reluctantly, sipping club soda and trying to avoid small talk. He was magnetic in that effortless way, easy laugh, confident posture. He said he was a creative strategist, which I later learned meant he bounced between marketing gigs and branding projects, mostly freelance. We were opposites, but we balanced each other. I had the spreadsheets and scheduled meal plans. He had the vision boards and last-minute weekend trips. Our differences felt charming back then. Necessary even. We got married 2 years later, and from the beginning we agreed on one thing. We'd be partners in every sense. No his and hers. When it came to money, everything would be ours. One joint account, shared savings, full transparency. That's how we talked about it, transparency. And for years that worked. Every direct deposit, every bill, every big purchase went through both of us. We weren't wealthy, but we were solid, practical. I tracked every transaction in a budget sheet I updated religiously every Sunday. That account, the one I found nearly empty, was where we put the important stuff. Emergency fund, vacation savings, someday, maybe even IVF. It wasn't just money, it was intention. It was shared effort, stored safely. Marcus used to joke that I was the CFO of our life, and I wore that title proudly. I never tried to control him, I just made sure we were safe. Covered, responsible. But looking back, I can see the drift. About a year ago, Marcus started getting more private about money. He got a contract gig that paid well, and I noticed he stopped looping me into conversations about his invoices. I asked once, offhandedly, "Did that client finally pay you?" He smiled and said, Yeah, I've got it under control." And that was that. I didn't push. I figured maybe he was just trying to handle more, to take pressure off me. After all, isn't that what marriage is? Learning when to trust, when to lean back? I see now that I leaned too far, and recently, maybe in the last 6 months, there were little things. He insisted on handling the groceries, told me he'd already taken care of the property tax this year, when usually we reviewed those things together. He brushed off our monthly check-ins with, "It's all good, babe, we're fine." But that's the trick, isn't it? Trust makes you mute your instincts. You don't want to be the partner who questions everything. You don't want to turn your marriage into an audit. So you let it slide. You swallow your worry because you want to believe the person you chose wouldn't lie to you, even when the evidence starts stacking up like receipts you haven't read yet. So when I saw that missing money, it didn't just hurt my pride. It pierced something deeper. Because Marcus didn't just take the cash, he dismantled the framework we'd built our lives on. He made a decision silently about our shared future, and that decision made mine very, very clear. The first thing I did was open my laptop. I needed a bigger screen. I needed clarity. I logged into the bank portal and expanded the transaction history. The app had only shown me part of the picture. On the website, I could see it all. 3 transfers, $2,000 on the 12th, $3,000 on the 16th, $1,500 on the 19th. All labeled the same way, transfer to Marcus G. All going into an account I didn't recognize. Not one of our shared ones, not the joint checking. This was separate, private. His. I sat back in my chair, my hands still resting on the trackpad. My eyes didn't blink. There was no note attached, no memo line, no explanation. I checked our calendar. There were no big payments coming up. No home repairs, no gifts, no medical bills. There was no reason for him to need that money, except the reason I was beginning to fear. Marcus wasn't home that morning. He had an early shoot. He said he was helping a friend film a product demo across town. I stared at the empty chair across the kitchen table. His laptop was gone, but his coffee cup was still there. I reached for my phone again and opened our text thread. Me. "You need anything before your shoot?" Him. "Nope, all good. I'll be back later this afternoon. Love you." The message was sent just an hour ago. Casual, normal, like he hadn't just drained nearly 70% of our savings without a word. That's what got me, the normalcy of it. He was lying through a smile. I pulled up the last 6 months of statements and started marking every withdrawal, every transfer, every expense I didn't recognize. I made a spreadsheet, not because I didn't believe it, but because I needed to see it, to hold it in columns and numbers, to make it real. There were signs. In April, he transferred $400 to that same account, small enough to fly under the radar. In May, another $600. Then it ramped up in June. He was testing the waters, seeing what he could take without notice. My stomach turned, but I didn't cry. I just kept sorting. Then I remembered something. 3 weeks earlier, I'd gotten a Chase envelope in the mail addressed to Marcus. I'd handed it to him. He looked at it, nodded, and slid it into his bag without opening it. I didn't think anything of it at the time. Now I realized it probably held the login or debit card to that secret account. I checked our credit report. A new card's in my name. Good. I searched his name. I couldn't see everything without his full info, but there was a soft inquiry from Chase 2 months ago. He had opened a personal account behind my back, while still depositing into our joint one, while still talking to me about our money. I looked around the kitchen. The house felt different, colder, smaller. It wasn't just a betrayal of funds, it was a betrayal of structure, of the unspoken rule that when one of us succeeded, we both did, that when one of us needed money, the other knew. This wasn't just miscommunication, this was deliberate. At 12:38 p.m., I sent him a message. Me, hey, just saw some transfers I didn't recognize. Did we move anything around? No reply. At 1:17 p.m., I tried again. Me, hey, can you check the account when you get a sec? Balance looks off. Still no reply. At 2:05 p.m., he finally responded. Marcus, yeah, I moved a bit over. Just wanted to make sure we had some cash separate for something I'm working on. Didn't want to worry you, nothing bad. We're good. Didn't want to worry me? I stared at those words like they were a puzzle I'd already solved. We're good. That's what people say when they know you're 2 seconds from realizing you're not. I didn't respond, not then. Instead, I clicked a new tab, and I started looking up how to open a separate account of my own. One he'd never find and never touch. That night, I didn't confront him. I didn't mention the transfers. I didn't mention the spreadsheet. I didn't even look at him differently, not outwardly. He came home late, said the shoot ran long, kissed my cheek, asked if I wanted Thai or sushi for dinner. I told him Thai. I watched him scroll his phone on the couch, legs up, completely relaxed, like he hadn't just cracked the foundation beneath our marriage and casually walked across it. I went to the bathroom and locked the door, and for the first time in a long time, I sat on the floor and let the silence speak. No tears came, not then. What filled the space wasn't sadness, it was dissonance. The man I married wasn't cruel. He never raised his voice. He remembered anniversaries. He held my hand when I got my biopsy. He once drove across town during rush hour because I forgot my laptop charger. So how did that same man steal from me? Because that's what it was. Theft, not the kind with masks and weapons, but something far more dangerous. Strategic theft, the kind done with full knowledge, with timing, with subtlety. He didn't just take the money, he took the choice away from me. And for someone like me, someone who builds a life around knowing, anticipating, preparing, that was the wound. I thought about the first time we moved in together, how we celebrated with takeout on the floor, no furniture, just wine and laughter and promises. And now here I was, sitting alone on cold tile, trying to make sense of the man who once built dreams with me now, quietly hoarding resources behind my back. I wanted to scream, but instead I stared at myself in the mirror. The woman looking back wasn't devastated, she was focused. I realized that I wasn't going to fall apart. I wasn't going to beg for an explanation or ask him to come clean. I already had all the data I needed. This wasn't an emotional mistake, it was a calculated decision, and the only thing I needed now was a plan to take back control of what was mine. It wouldn't be explosive, it wouldn't be cruel, but it would be final. I took a deep breath, I stood up, and I whispered to myself, "All right then." That was the moment the storm began to clear. Not because the pain was gone, but because it had a direction. I didn't take action right away. The next morning, while Marcus was still asleep, I got up early and made tea instead of coffee. I needed to slow everything down, my mind, my instincts, my reactions. I sat on the patio with my laptop and started typing one phrase into the search bar: financial infidelity in marriage. I thought maybe it was a stretch, maybe I was overreacting, but the results told me I wasn't alone. There were stories, forums, long posts written by women who had discovered hidden credit cards, secret accounts, cash withdrawals, property bought in silence. Some had found out years later after divorce filings or death. Others, like me, had spotted something that felt off, just early enough to change course. There were statistics, too. One article said nearly 40% of married Americans admitted to hiding purchases, bank accounts, or debts from their partner, and nearly every expert agreed financial betrayal cuts deeper than most people realize. Because money isn't just about money, it's about power, about safety, about trust. Every dollar moved without your knowledge is a decision made without your consent. Reading those words, something clicked. Marcus didn't have a gambling problem. He wasn't out partying. He was simply rerouting our shared resources for something he didn't want me to see. And that was enough. I closed the tab and opened a new one. How to open a separate high-yield savings account. Not a petty move, not an act of vengeance. An insurance policy. I wanted an account in my name only. Separate from our joint banking, tied to my email, my phone number, my income. Quiet, legal, locked. I opened an incognito browser, chose a reputable online bank with strong privacy features. It took 20 minutes. I filled in my information, set up security questions, and linked it to my direct deposit from work. I didn't move money yet, but the account was real. It was mine. And for the first time in days, I felt something settle in me. It wasn't joy, it wasn't even relief. It was balance. I had options now. A space to redirect my income, a place untouched by his decisions, a future no longer dependent on shared intentions that had quietly evaporated. I created a new spreadsheet, named it Plan B, filled it with monthly goals, savings projections, and a 6-month runway. I wasn't filing for divorce, not yet. This wasn't about destroying anything, it was about preparing. The same way you buy insurance, not because you want your house to catch fire, but because you don't trust that it never will. I closed my laptop just as Marcus walked into the kitchen. He kissed the top of my head and said, "Morning." I smiled, "Morning." And nothing in my voice gave me away. Over the next 2 weeks, I became a woman of quiet rituals. Every morning, before Marcus woke up, I reviewed my budget. I rerouted my paycheck to the new savings account, split into 2 deposits. A small portion still went into our joint account, just enough to keep the illusion alive. The rest flowed into my name only. I called my HR department and asked for the change without giving too much detail. They didn't ask questions. I smiled through the phone. Each day I transferred a little more, grocery money, refund credits, freelance earnings, from a side project I rarely mentioned. It wasn't about the amount, it was about momentum, forward motion, a shift in gravity. I opened a second checking account tied to the new savings. I ordered a debit card, sleek, navy blue, with only my name embossed in silver. When the envelope arrived, I didn't open it in the kitchen. I opened it in the bathroom behind a locked door. I held it like a key. This wasn't about hiding, it was about separating, building parallel systems, ones that no longer relied on his involvement or his permission. I reviewed our monthly bills, the ones I handled, the electric, Wi-Fi, insurance. I kept paying from the joint account. I didn't want to trigger suspicion, but I started shifting the auto-pay accounts that were in my name over to my private checking. Quietly, slowly. One evening, Marcus asked if I wanted to look at our savings again soon, just to check in. I said, "Maybe next week?" He smiled and nodded, completely unaware that the game had already changed. I also changed my passwords, not just banking, email, cloud storage, calendar, even the streaming services. I set up 2-factor authentication for everything. I deleted old devices from my accounts. He wasn't the tech-savvy one, but still, I left nothing to chance. The more I did, the more I felt a shift in posture. I walked taller, slept better. The undercurrent of fear began to drain away, replaced with something quieter, confidence. This wasn't revenge, it was preservation, and it wasn't just financial. I made an appointment with a therapist I'd found online, just 1 session initially. But in that hour, I told her everything, not just about the money, but the trust, the erosion of voice, the soft lies that had gone unchecked. She asked me what I wanted. I told her, "I want to feel like my life is mine again." And I was getting there. I didn't tell anyone, not my sister, not my best friend. This part of the journey was mine. It wasn't about gossip or validation. It was about restoration. There was a moment I remember clearly, standing in the line at the bank to get a certified copy of my new account details. There was a woman in front of me holding a baby on her hip, looking exhausted. Behind me, a teenager tapping his foot, earbuds in. And me, professionally dressed, calm, holding a folder that contained proof that I wasn't stuck. That's when it hit me. This wasn't about him anymore. It was about me. I had a financial exit, a cushion, a safety net he couldn't access, a future that no longer required his permission, and all I needed now was the right moment to reveal what I knew. Because sometimes the most powerful form of retaliation isn't anger. It's independence. And he was about to learn that in the most unexpected way. It was a Thursday evening, 3 weeks after I'd opened the new account. The air in the house was still. Marcus had just gotten home from another freelance consult meeting and was reheating leftovers in the microwave. I was sitting at the dining table, laptop open, a printed document resting beside it. I waited until he sat down. "I want to go over something," I said calmly. He looked up, surprised. "Now?" I nodded. "Yeah, just 5 minutes." He leaned back in his chair, chewing slowly. "Okay, what's up?" I turned the laptop screen toward him. On it was our joint savings account, current balance $3,412.17. Beside it, a spreadsheet, with every transfer, every date, every amount. His eyes flicked over the numbers. I watched the shift in his posture, the way his foot stopped bouncing, the way his hands froze midair. "I tracked everything," I said. "I just want to know why." He cleared his throat, tried to smile. "Babe, I told you those were just some temporary moves. I didn't want to worry you. I needed to handle something." I held up my hand. No explanations yet, just honesty. "What was the money for?" He hesitated. "Marcus." He sighed, the performative kind. "I'm trying to start something new, a solo thing. It's early stage, not even real yet. I didn't want you to shut it down before I got it moving." I blinked. "So instead of telling me you took thousands and rerouted them behind my back?" He didn't respond. "I asked you about our financial check-in. You said maybe next week. Remember that?" He nodded. "That was 2 weeks ago." Silence. I slid the folder across the table. He looked down. Inside were 3 documents. 1. A printout of my new high-yield savings account, balance, routing number, transaction history. 2. A breakdown of my redirected paychecks. 3rd, a list of all joint bills I'd quietly moved out of our account. "I've created a firewall," I said. "Everything I earn now goes there. You can't touch it." He stared at the papers, jaw tight. "This isn't a threat," I continued. "It's a correction." Still, he didn't speak. "I don't care what you're building. I care that you erased me from the decision." He finally looked at me. "So what now? You don't trust me?" I smiled, but it wasn't soft. "Number I verify now." He tried to soften his tone. "Jules, we're a team." "No, Marcus," I said quietly. "You made yourself a team of one. You made decisions for us without me." He looked away. I stood, picked up the folder, and slid the debit card from my new account into my wallet. "I'm not leaving," I said. "But I'm not operating on fantasy anymore. If you want to be part of this partnership, it comes with transparency. Otherwise..." I didn't finish the sentence. I didn't need to. I left him at the table, still staring at numbers he thought I'd never see. Later that night, he asked if we could talk again. I said we'd schedule time with a counselor, because from now on we weren't fixing anything in whispers or behind closed doors. He wasn't in control anymore. And the money he took? That was the last time he'd ever touched something that belonged to both of us, without permission. He showed up, to his credit. He listened. He said all the right things, that he didn't realize how much it hurt me, that he didn't think it was a betrayal, that he was just trying to build something. But that was the problem. He wasn't trying to build something with me. He was trying to build it alone, using our shared foundation. Counseling helped, but not in the way people imagine. It didn't fix us, it clarified us. It helped me see just how long I'd been carrying the emotional weight of our life. While he floated on the assumption that my structure was infinite, he got defensive, then apologetic, then quiet. But I stayed still, clear, steady. I kept my private accounts, kept my redirected income. I rebuilt my own emergency fund, brick by brick, paycheck by paycheck. I started seeing my therapist regularly. She didn't push me. She just asked questions that made space for me to finally answer myself. Am I staying because I love him, or because I fear starting over? Am I protecting the marriage, or just afraid of losing the story I thought we were living? For now, we're still under the same roof, but I move differently. I operate with independence. The trust may come back, or it may not. That part isn't certain. What is certain is this: I will never again hand over my financial security in blind faith. Not because I'm bitter, but because I'm awake. Marcus knows now. He knows that I'm not the woman who just keeps track of the bills. I'm the one who builds the safety net and the parachute. And if you're listening to this and something in your gut is stirring, let me say this clearly. You are allowed to protect yourself, quietly, legally, strategically. You don't owe anyone blind access to your future.